All right, for lesson 3 of our Photoshop lessons, we're going to do selections. So what we're going to do is learn how to crop out and cut out parts of other pictures and add them to another picture. And then I'll show you guys for your project how you'll make a fantasy vacation using these techniques, okay? So I'm the one I'm going to do with you guys, and I'll provide it for you if you want to do it with me, but you at least need to watch this video for credit, is it's going to have like seashells. So we're going to take different seashells and we're going to put them all on this one like backdrop. And you'll see what I'm talking about. So I'm going to find the picture. So I have it saved. All right, here. Lessons. And I have mine saved here. And hopefully, yep, there it is. And so what we're going to do here is crop out these different pictures of these shells and even these screws here. And we're going to put them in the places where they want us to put them. Okay, this is a good one if you want to practice with this one with me. This is a good one to practice with me if you want to, because it's not that hard, and then it'll make the project that you do a little easier. And I'll also show you when we get to the project how you'll add the pictures to other canvases in that kind of situation. So just to get that ready, let me show you what I'm gonna just kind of get this ready for you. Just this is not something you have to do for the practice, but it is something you'll have to do when you do your actual fantasy vacation. So I'm just having that ready. So the first one here, A, is this one. All right, and this is like a sand dollar. All right, so for the sand dollar, what we're going to do here is what's called the quick selection tool. So first of all, I'm going to zoom into the sand dollar. So I'm going to press Z on my keyboard to press the zoom into the sand dollar, about to there. And now I'm going to go to my quick selection tool. Now I'll say, hopefully this works as well as Photoshop does. We're going to find out. But it looks like the quick selection tools here and some of the magic wand tools that we're going to use. So I'm going to go ahead and click the quick selection tool. And same thing with all the other tools. You can resize it using those brackets, like your paintbrush size. So I'm going to make it a decent size. I mean, that should honestly be enough. And then what quick selection tool does, let me explain this tool to you, is it quickly selects things, and then it allows you to deselect parts of it, like pushing. And we'll get into this one talking about. But what it does is it recognizes edges. So it's going to grow on its own, and when it sees an edge, it's going to stop. Okay, so when you have a thing like this with the sand dollar and a red background, hopefully what it does is it recognizes the sand dollar as one object, and it's going to stop at the edge here and give us like a perfect selection. So let me try this real quick. Okay, did not do it. Now in Photoshop, it would recognize that edge, and it's possible that, let's see, this is the size. Let's see, refine edge. Okay, I don't want to do this. Let's clear. I don't know what all that is. We'll just go back to this real quick. Okay, so in Photoshop, it would recognize that. So if you guys have Photoshop, you'll notice it's going to stop on the red, but here it did not. So what we can do in this situation is push it back in. So it grew and it recognized the edge on the red. Luckily, it didn't grow beyond that. But what we need to do is push it back into the sand dollar. So I'm going to hold down Alt, okay? And you'll notice up here, it's a plus. But when I press Alt, do you see how it went to a minus right there? Do you see the minus? What that means now is instead of making a selection, it's going to erase a selection. So I can come out here and push. So I'm holding down Alt, so it's a minus, and I'm just going to push it back in. And look at that. When I pushed it in, it then recognized what I was trying to get, and it stopped on the sand dollar. Okay? I'll tell you on Photoshop, it would have got that on the first try. Photopea, we got to do the extra step, but it still works. Now that we have our selection here, now I can go back to my Move tool. So here's my Move tool. And there's a couple different things you can do here. We want to make sure we put this on a separate layer. The reason why is if I move this and I'm still on, see, I'm on my background layer. If I move this, okay, and then I go to do something else, I press enter, blah, blah, blah. So I press enter, it's there. I'm going to go to a different tool now, press Control D to deselect that. Well, I messed up, right? I can't move it now because it's all part of the same image. So if you put it in a separate layer, it allows you to move it around if you ever need to put it somewhere else. I'm going to go put this back real quick. I'm going to go back to this tool. Now, in Photoshop, there's a couple different ways you can make another layer. Okay, so let me make sure it does the same thing in Photoshop here. Now, let's try this again. Okay, there it goes. Okay, so that made a copy. That's not a separate layer, though. Let me see if there's a hotkey to make another layer. No. So what we're going to do in this case, in Photopea, so in Photoshop, you can press Alt and it should create the other layer for you, but Photopea is not letting us do that. So what we're going to do is just go ahead and make our other layer here. So I'm going to make a layer. Layer 1, I'm going to call it Sand Dollar. Sand Dollar. I think that's, I think it's like that. I'm gonna go back to this layer where the sand dollar is, and I'm just gonna press Control C. So that's the copy, Control C. I think if I just right click now, I'm gonna press Control C, and then I'm gonna go to the sand dollar and press Control V. Okay, and there it is. You see that little thing? It made a copy there. So now I can go to my move, and there it is. There's my copy. So what's cool about having it on another layer like this is if I ever do something else and I decide, wait, I need to move this, I can always go back to my sand dollar layer and move it where I need it to go, and it's not going to mess up the picture in the back because they're on separate layers. That's why layers are so important and so useful in Photoshop, guys, okay? So you're going to make separate layers for each object that you have a separate, that's being added to the picture, okay? Got that one done. If you don't like this little transform option here, you can just deselect that if you like. Let's see. Next one is going to be B. Okay, B is this one. I think that's that one, right? I think that's B. Okay, so for B, the way we're going to do this one, and which is pretty interesting here, is let me make sure I'm doing the right ones on these. Okay, yeah. Is we're just going to go to the ellipse select tool here. Now this one only works, and there's another option here for square rectangles. This one only works for perfect circles and perfect squares. And actually the ellipse tool, not really necessarily perfect. You can have egg type circles, but it's helpful if the circle's like smooth, is what I'm trying to say. So let's see if this works the same way as it does in Photoshop. So I'm gonna make my circle, and you notice it doesn't matter where I start, because what I can do, oh no, let's see. That's not gonna, there we go. Okay. So it doesn't matter where I start. So let me do that again real quick. So I'm going to start out here. It doesn't matter because if you notice the whole thing moves anyways. So what you're going to do is get it where you need it, or get it kind of like started, and then press your space bar. So I'm not letting go of my mouse. My mouse, you see that it's still clicked. But what I'm going to do here is hold down space bar to kind of move it where I need to. So I'm not letting go of my click, and I'm holding down space bar. And then I'm going to let go of space bar and see if I can start to resize this again. Okay, that looks kind of good. If you need to move it up a little, I'm going to press space bar, just move it up slightly, go like this, and I'm just trying to line it up with this as best as I can. Okay, now if you notice, this is not a perfect circle. If it was a perfect circle, you could hold down shift and see how now it's a perfect circle. I'm holding down shift. Well, it's not, so I'm not going to hold down shift, but if you did, you could hold down shift. I'm just going to size it, and then if you need to, like I said, press space bar to kind of move it where you need and get it as lined up as best as you can, and then when you're done, just let go. Okay, now I when I let go there, I kind of moved my mouse a little bit, so if I wanted to retry, I could, but you know what, I'm fine with this. So what I'm going to do now is make another layer. Okay, and always make your other layer before you do all this. So this is just going to be called plate, I guess. We're going to call it plate because it looks like a plate with stuff on it. Then I need to go back to my background where because if I'm on my plate layer and I press Control C, I'm copying nothing because there's nothing on that layer. But if I go to my background layer and I press Control C, I can then go to here, press Control V, and now it copies it there. So you have to make sure you copy from the correct layer and then paste it on the correct layer. So now that I have it here, I can then move it, okay, and put it where I need it, just like so, and there we go. That one's done, okay? Now, let me check the next one real quick. Okay. The next one is C. Okay, this one's fun. This one's easy. So this one here, this one's interesting, right? Some of you are like, well, how in the heck are we going to get every little edge here? Well, sometimes when you do objects, the quick selection tool is one of the best things. You're just going to have to like try your best, get it, and then if you mess up, push it back, pressing Alt. Remember doing, just kind of like redoing it. But this situation, we're a little lucky in this situation because this situation has a solid white background with this object on top of it, okay? And we can use that to our advantage. So what we're gonna do here is I'm gonna press the rectangle marquee tool and I'm just gonna make a square around this object. Okay, this only works if you have a solid background. We could have done it on this one too, but the quick selection was fine on this. But you need a solid background with whatever else on top of it being, whatever it is, okay? But you need a solid background for this to work. So once you make your square, you're then going to go to where the quick selection tool was, which was right here, hotkey W, and there's one that says magic wand, okay? Now magic wand tool, what the magic wand tool does is it recognizes color. Okay, so you can click on colors and it's going to select that color until it hits another color and then it's going to stop. Well, in this situation, we can also subtract colors, just like the quick selection where we can subtract. Well, in this case, we're going to subtract, because this is our selection, we're going to subtract the white. So it's going to get rid of all the white until it hits something that's not white. So I have my square, and the reason why we put a square here is kind of like a boundary, because if not, if I click it without the square, it's going to select all the white that's everywhere. But in this case, I have a selection. Now I can subtract the selection that I don't want, which is white. So I'm on my tool right here. And let's see if this works, hopefully. Okay, so I'm going to hold down Alt, and then I'm going to click the white. So I'm holding down Alt because I want to subtract. Okay? Now, this may have not worked here because I'm on the wrong layer. So I need to go to my background layer. So I messed up. You always need to make sure you go back to the layer that it is that you're wanting to like trace or cut out, right? So in this case, I'm going to press Alt again. There it goes. Do you see what happened there? So I'm going to show you again. So I hold down Alt. I click the white because that's what I'm wanting to erase because I'm holding Alt. If I didn't hold Alt, it would add the white. And I'll show you what I mean by that. But like, let's say if I click the red here. See how it selected all the red? Well, if I already have a selection, I want to erase something. I hold Alt, I click the white, it subtracts it, and look, it stops on the thing that's not white, which is this. So I have a perfect selection of that now. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and make my other layer real quick. This is called Coral. I'm going to go back here again to background. I'm going to press Control C. Go back to Coral, press Control V. That paste it. So Control C, Control V. There it is. Now I can move it up. Okay, and then I'm just going to move it where it needs to go. Okay, get it where I need it. Okay, and there we go. Cool. All right. We have a couple more. What is this? Oh, make sure you don't do what I just did. If you need to zoom out, just zoom out. Don't. I guess it grabbed the whole thing when I did that. There's usually like a move bar. There we go. So if you want to move, just don't grab this because it'll move. Well, I don't know. That's weird. Anyways, so next we have E and D. E's right here. D's right here. Let's go ahead and come to this one. And I'm going to show you kind of like with the quick selection tool again. You're just going to select the shell. Okay. It didn't work. It grew too much. So I'm just going to hold Alt and then push it back in. Wow, that was much easier. But if you'll notice, if I zoom in, some things did not go quite right. There's mess ups here. So what I'm going to do is go back to my quick selection tool and I'm going to make it a little smaller so I can work a little better here. And I'm just going to hold Alt and kind of push it back in right here. Okay, this is not as nice as Photoshop. Okay. So I'm just doing back now. I let go of Alt and I'm just going to try to push it back. There you go. That looks better. Let's try this one here. I'm going to make my tool a little smaller. Hold Alt. Push it back in. Alt. Oh, goodness. So I'm just coloring. I'm holding it down right now, just kind of trying to push it as best as I can. If you mess, and what I'm doing is if I mess up too much, I press Control Z. Now, unfortunately, I am not liking this Photopea as much. It is not working so great. I'll tell you on Photoshop, this is so much nicer. Okay, but we're getting it done. We just have to keep going back and forth. So what I'm saying too is if it messes up too much and I try to go back and see if I can fix it, but if it doesn't, and sometimes I just click. So I let go here because this one I'm trying to grow it. So all you're doing here, guys, is you're kind of just pressing Alt to push it in, let go of Alt to push it out. And you're just kind of going back and forth till you get a good selection. This is going to be your best tool if you're trying to cut out people and all kinds of stuff. This is the best tool, the quick selection tool. Okay. Unfortunately, it's not as good as Photoshop's quick selection. Photoshop would just get this down like that, right? But we're making the best do. I was able to get it done. I'm not going to go crazy if yours is not a perfect trace. This is not a perfect trace. Don't worry. Just try to get it as best as you can. And Photoshop too, there's ways to like feather it to make it look a little nicer. Like right here, you can click refine edge. So if you didn't, I could click here So it's taking me here to the refine the edge. And this is just different. But what this does is it's already kind of doing it. I guess it's automatically. But what you can do here is refine it, and you can even create the new layer afterwards. So from this point, if you click refine edge, new layer, click OK, it created the other layer. It's just called background again. So I'm going to rename this and call it snail shale. I don't even know if I spelled that right. Whatever. Okay. So I'm going to zoom out. What happened to my so it made my background disappear. If that ever happens, just press the eyeball. It'll come back. Okay. So now I have my snail shell because I created the new layer. I'm going to drag it up here. Okay. Now when I did that refine edge, there's options up there. We could play around with them, but in Photoshop they're a little bit easier to understand. It gives you like this little thing. It'll say like feather. It'll say feather. That's to kind of like blend the edges so it doesn't look so weird and jagged. There's options for that probably in here. It just doesn't say it specifically, and we can mess around with it if we wanted to. But it looked like it automatically did some stuff, so I pressed OK, and it looks like it did try to smooth it out some. You see how it's kind of like little feathered, smoothed out a little bit. All right. I do like that option to create another layer when you do that, so we might use that again in the future. But anyways, let's do this one real quick. Now on this one, you could do the magic wand trick again, but I am not. Let's make sure I didn't mess anything up. I'm going to use one last tool here to, it's called the magnetic lasso tool. So it's right here. And what this tool does is it kind of like magnetizes around the edges. Some students like this. The problem with this is if you mess up, sometimes if you mess up, it kind of can go a little crazy. And what you'll just have to do is either start over or try to finish it up and then use your quick selection tool to touch it up. But in this case, I'm going to just start on an edge. Okay, and I click and look. You see how it's like magnetizing onto the edge on itself by itself? So I'm just kind of tracing around. I'm just moving my mouse. I'm not even pressing anything. It's just doing it on its own. Okay, so see how it's, oh, okay, cool. It fixed itself. Photoshop, does this well too, obviously. But I notice Photoshop sometimes messes up on one spot. I think it's like around here. But this one looks to be doing, this actually might be better than Photoshop in terms of how well it's tracing this. Yeah, I mean, this is actually quite surprising. Okay, and when you get to the end, just double click, and there it goes. Okay, I accidentally double clicked a little too much there. Let me just press Control Z to go back, get my selection. You'll notice it's not quite perfect either. But what we can do here again is click Refine Edge. Okay, oop, let me go back. I messed up. Let's go back. Okay, I'm pressing Control Z to go back, or you have your history here. So that's where we went, but I'm going to go back to this. I was on the wrong layer. Okay, I need to be on the background layer. Remember that? If you ever try doing it and you notice what you're copying is not copying, just make sure you're on the right layer. Okay, so I'm on my background layer now. And now that I'm on my background layer, there's an option. I can press Control C, Control V, or if I don't like the edges, I can click Refine Edge, let it do it for me. It's going to create a new layer. It looks like it's automatically doing some stuff again, like I said. It looks a little more feathered. You can zoom in if you want to make sure, but you can play around with these too. These just don't look quite as understanding as Photoshop, so I'm not going to mess with it right now. But it looks like it did something, so I'm going to leave it on new layer, press OK, created my new layer. I'm going to rename that new layer and call this, what is this, an oyster? Okay. There's my oyster. My eyeball disappeared again for background, so I'll make it come back, zoom back out, grab this. Okay, but look, this one is not the right rotation, okay? So I need to rotate it. All right, so what I need to do is click on my transform again. All right, there's that. I don't know why that box is so big. Oh, it's because I'm on the wrong layer. So go back to oyster. Why? No, that's still big. Whatever. I guess I must have accidentally selected something else. But now that I have the oyster, I'm just going to rotate it. Okay, and if y'all's looks weird like this too, it just, I guess, try to make it do. Oh, there it goes. So if you accidentally click on the wrong layer, it seems to go to that layer. So anyways, I'm just going to rotate it the way I need it. Go back to my move, pull it where I want it, and there it goes. Last but not least, the screws to make it look nice. Okay, this is just to make it look like it has screws on the sides. This is a simple one. I'm just going to go zoom into this real quick. I am going to use my ellipse tool. This is a perfect circle on this one. So I'm going to hold shift. So I'm holding shift. And then while I have to still hold shift, so you got to use your fingers pretty well on this. I'm also going to hold down space bar and move it where I want it, let go. I'm still holding shift. I'm not letting go. And there's my perfect circle. Okay. In this case, I'm not on the right layer. I'm going to go to background. I'm going to press Control C. And then I'm just going to make another layer here and call it screw 1. Okay. Make another layer here. Call it screw 2. And now we would do this 4 times on each little thing, but I'm just going to do it twice on the top just to kind of give you the idea, because I don't, for the sake of time on this video not being too long. But now I'm going to press Control C here, go to screw 1, press Control V, go to screw 2, press Control V. I pasted it there. On screw 2, I'm going to drag it up here. Okay, it's too big, so I'm going to make it a little smaller. I'm going to hold down shift to keep it proportional, because if not, it might look too skinny, or maybe it doesn't. Maybe you just kind of get it where you want it. But if you hold shift, it's going to keep it proportional. And what I mean by that is it's not going to look all distorted. So I'm going to get it kind of where I want it and then rotate it. Okay. Go to my other one, screw 1, move it over here. And honestly, I probably should have just copied this one so it would be the same size. But I'm gonna just try to line it up as best as I can. So that's a little too big. So it's pretty close, but just a little bit smaller. And now that I got it here, need to move over. Go back here, click it, and just kind of rotate it so they don't look the same. I think I already rotated the other one, but all right, press enter. I can zoom out now. All right, and there you go. I have my screws on the top. And like I said, you'd usually put them down here at the bottom too, but for the sake of time, I did not. And lastly, we need to make sure, so I'm gonna go back to my background, that we just kind of get rid of all this other stuff here because we don't need it anymore. So I'm gonna go to my background, go to my crop tool. So remember to crop it down. Remember we did that with the one picture with the family. We kind of like rotated, cropped it a little bit. That's what this one is. So I'm just gonna go like this and then press enter. And it crops it all out. Okay, there we go. We're finished with that, and that is done. I'll make another video to show you the project after this, but this is how you do the one. This is how you do all the selecting stuff. Quick selection is going to be your best friend. All right, guys. Good luck.